And now let's welcome your host of Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour, Louise Hicks. In this episode, Black Warriors for Justice, because we care.
Okay, hello world. How is everybody today? This is Louise Hicks, your host of Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour, and we're coming to you this last day of February, Black History Month. And I have my guest on, and if you're not on, just go to my YouTube channel, Aim to Purpose Radio, and subscribe, because you can see all the videos there. They will be uploaded. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And today's topic will be Black Warriors because we care. Black Warriors for Justice, actually. Black Warriors for Justice because we care. And the care is for creating a relevant environment, because that's what we would like to do for our community, is create a relevant environment that shows that we care. And that care, again, is creating a relevant environment. We may start an organization like that, because that's how we build up our communities. So how is everybody today? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us on this last couple of days of Black History Month, February 2022. We've had some exciting previous shows where we spoke about and read the Willie Lynch letter, The Making of a Slave. And I have it here just to share it with those who don't have it. If you'd like to get this book, you can. It's called The Willie Lynch Letter and the Making of a Slave. And we talked about this book and read it because it really doesn't matter. Some say that Willie Lynch didn't exist, and we don't know whether Willie Lynch did or not. Really doesn't matter, because we have a lot of Willie Lynches in today's society, past societies, and it's really all about the experience. And that's what we share. And thank everybody who participated and gave your perspective on your thoughts and how we can build up our Black community and share with one another so we can unify, because we all know that it is by design that we are a divided community, where we need to build our own businesses, our own communities, and create that generational wealth that our forefathers, foremothers, and children worked very hard during slavery under some of the most horrific circumstances. And we're still having some of these horrific circumstances today in the modern day industrial society that we supposedly live in, but sometimes it doesn't really seem like it's an industrial civilized society, which was highly demonstrated on January 6th, when an uncivilized mob, that's what I would call it, attempted to take over the state capitol. Actually, they did take it over from what I could see, and destroyed they just went berserk. And if that had been Black people going berserk, we know that it would have been a bloodbath. However, it wasn't us. So with that said, since this is the end of Black History Month, as I have mentioned in the past, to me, Black History Month is every day, because I was born a Black female, and that made history. We all are making history as Black people. We're very brilliant. We're melanated Black people. And don't forget that. Don't let anyone steal your brilliancy, because we do have it. We are the creators of so many inventions here, so many things that we've done that have been overlooked and destroyed, such as Black Wall Street. And Black Wall Street was not the only American thriving Black community that was destroyed. There are many others, and just go look them up on YouTube or any other source or resource that you would like to look up. And you will find that many Black cities, Black communities were destroyed by white races who did not want us to thrive under the most adverse circumstances. And we have had many adverse circumstances within our Black communities that have been and still is by design to keep us disadvantaged economically, socially, mentally, physically, intellectually, in every aspect of our lives. However, we as Black people have been resilient because we have not allowed that to stop us. Many of us are still thriving, loving ourselves, loving one another, because we know who we are. And that's the key to it, knowing who you are, because you can create your own destiny. And I have a little, I like to pick up things that are really interesting and help us to understand better how to navigate ourselves through this society. And I saw this, and I decided to pick it up. I don't remember where I got it from, in some little store. And it's called Always Be the One to Create Your Own Destiny. Always be the one to create your own destiny. So with that said, just because we've had these atrocities that have been leveraged against our forefathers, foremothers, forechildren, and still us today, as we've seen with the George Floyd murder right in our eyesight, Arbery Mayberry, and just recently I shared with you in January, a FedEx driver, a young Black man, had to run for his life because he had some white racists shooting at him in Jackson, Mississippi. And this was January 2022. So we just need to talk about these things because it's so important. If we don't talk about it, how are we going to take action? And we must take actions. And there are many out here who are taking action now, doing things that is helping us to elevate ourselves, because we know who we are, the ones of us who are doing positive things and getting away from all the negatives that you see, because some of us are still entrapped in that enslaved mentality and perpetuating the ignorance that's by design to keep us disadvantaged. When we have, I believe I mentioned last show, $1 trillion passing through our Black hands in 2021. That was something profiled on one of the major news stations. And still, with that type of money, we have gone backward. We are losing our financial net worth. We are the only ethnicity that went backward, actually. And that's so sad. So this week, like I said, our topic is Black warriors for justice, because we care, and the care is for creating a relevant environment. And I'd just like to share with you a few things about Did You Know? And since I've moved here from California to Texas, my brother was sharing something with me, and that's why it's so important for us to talk to each other, share information with each other, share these podcasts with our families, our loved ones that want to understand and know the why and the root cause of why we as Black people are in the situation that we're in today. Whereas we have become at the bottom of all ethnicities in terms of our net worth. And my brother shared this with me and I want to share it with you, did you know that the first Black millionaire in Texas was a gentleman by the name of William McDonald? I didn't know this. We have so many Black people that have done extraordinary things, you guys. Extraordinary. However, it's hidden because they don't want you to know about these Black people who have been humanitarians, who have been stars among us. And William McDonald of Fort Worth, Texas, became the first Black millionaire. And this was profiled by a historian by the name of Jane Higgins. And this man was born around 1866, died 1950. And did you know that at the age of 18, he became a school principal in Kaufman County, Texas, at the age of 18? That's brilliance. Then at the age of 21, he joined the state's Republican Party, eventually becoming the chairman of the state of Texas Republican Party, William McDonald. Then he went on to buy up real estate, foreclosed properties, fixed them up, and either sold them or rented them to Black people. This is a person that cares. And that's what we have to be about. We have to be about caring. We can say we love each other, but if we don't show that we are caring for each other by doing something positive and passing on what we achieve to others, whether it be within your speech, your material possessions, or just going to help someone out that may be disabled, that you can go and pick up something from the grocery store for them, go and ask them, is it anything that you can do for them to help them out? All of these things are important for us to do. It doesn't always have to be about giving some money. Give of your time. Give of who you are as a caring person. It's so important and so vital. And that's why I do this show, because I want to give back to my community that has been good to me, that has caused me to elevate to where I am today. Not that I haven't had to fight for a lot of it too, because on the jobs, I've had to fight for justice. In the schools, I've gone out to fight for justice for my children and myself. In college, because I went to an all-Black school in Shreveport, Louisiana, from living in one of the largest settlements in Louisiana, the Cooper Road, USA, which is part of Shreveport, Louisiana, where I was born. We had a thriving community. I was born in 1951. In fact, I'm getting ready to celebrate my 71st birthday on March 4th. So by all means, share with your family, share this podcast with them. Tell them to go to YouTube and subscribe. Aim to Purpose Radio, hit the thumbs up. That's how we learn. And if you're not sharing information, how are we going to get knowledge? And that's something that a lot of us don't do. We will share some foolishness. We will share Karen, Becky, and some of these white people that are out here doing stupid stuff. We're very willing to share that. But when it comes to something positive to enhance our lives and elevate us, many of us are afraid to share. We're even afraid to speak out, speak up. And I've never been afraid. That's something I learned from my mother, who was never afraid. Of course, my father was a very smart man. He could take a car apart and build it up. However, being born in 1912, it was difficult for him because he was a Black man. I remember my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, sharing a story with us about my grandfather having to run for his life. He was a sharecropper, and he was merely asking for some money that he deserved because of his hard work. This was during the Jim Crow era. So we have to not be fearful and speak up. And another thing about this William McDonald, as I mentioned, He was the first Black millionaire in the state of Texas. And he died in 1950, and they were saying that he got the last laugh. And the reason being is because a 38-foot tall monument was built on a hill in Oakwood Cemetery. And some of you may know about this if you're from the state of Texas or live in the Fort Worth area. It's saying it was built on a hill in Oakwood Cemetery, looking down upon the former headquarters of the KKK of the Fort Worth chapter. And he also started a bank, the first Black bank in Fort Worth. I mean, this was a gentleman that was not afraid. He wasn't afraid to move forward and to do something positive and constructive to help us as Black people. So we need to have that same type of challenge within ourselves. Be able to do something positive. So does anyone want to speak? Because like I said, this is the last week of Black history. And I see what you're saying, Barbara. Being from the South makes us not being afraid. And that has a lot of merit to it, because a lot of us did come from the South. And I just share you a quick little story. If anyone wants to unmute and speak, go ahead. A quick little story about me. Like I said, I graduated from an all-Black school in Shreveport, Louisiana, Lanier High. Shout out to all of my class of 1969, because we had teachers that truly cared about us. They truly did care, and we were taught well. When I came to California, I was amazed at how we in the South always thought all the glamour and glitz and everything of Hollywood and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And when I came to California, I was amazed when I started college, because I did graduate from high school in Louisiana, Shreveport, Lanier High School, 69 class, as I'm stated. And I was amazed at what I knew compared to some of my peers. And they thought we lived in slavery, I think, and didn't know we lived amongst entrepreneurs back in that time. Black people had a grocery store where they delivered grocery, had barbershops. We trusted one another. And that's the thing that's missing today, a lack of trust amongst us as Black people. We got to start trusting one another. And we know that that reading of that Willie Lynch letter attempted to destroy us and to destroy the Black family. However, that didn't happen. It did not destroy us, that experience, and it was torturous for our forefathers and foreparents. That's why I'm so fired up sometimes about the apathy and complacency of a lot of our young people. And I know it has to do with a lack of knowledge. That's why many of us perish, and we're not utilizing our resources that we have wisely. We're not spending our money wisely. Many of us do not patronize the Black businesses, saying their stuff is too high. Well, if you're not patronizing them, how are we going to get the prices down? We spend money with white establishments, Asian establishments, and so forth, lots of money with them. So if you think about it, why don't you spend some of that money within our community and let it circulate? Because these people, a lot of them do not trade with us as Black people, and we know that to be a fact. They trade within their own community. That's their first priority, and we have to make ourselves our first priority as Black people. We have to make ourselves number one. Charity starts at home. So that's what we have to do as Black people, make ourselves number one. And I want to share a little bit more about some of the other things that I've seen going on this week. And one was, I talked about Black Wall Street, Oklahoma, where it was destroyed, and our government helped to do it from the airstrikes government planes used. There are other towns that were underwater, that are underwater, Black towns that are missing because they're underwater. And I was reading about this, and they're throughout the United States. If you will go to YouTube and look up towns underwater, where are missing Black towns? Many of them were destroyed because they were thriving, and they built rivers over these Black towns that they destroyed, white races. So go look it up. You can look it up. Black towns that were destroyed, many of them throughout the US, because they were thriving. We are a brilliant melanated people. That's why I said Black warriors for justice, because we care. And the care is for creating a relevant environment. And that's what we are going to do. We just have to unify and come together and start self-love that will radiate into loving one another. Does anyone want to speak? Do you have any perspective that you want to talk about before I share some other information of some of the things that are still going on? Please do.
I would like to.
Okay, go ahead, Barbara.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Hello, Louise. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for the invite. I just wanted to say, myself being from the South, first of all, I want to thank you, for having this panel. I want to thank you so much for sharing all of your expertise and your brilliance with all of us. I'm inviting a lot of my friends. Matter of fact, all of my friends, I invite them to everything that you do, of course. But I wanted to say, being from the South, it makes you, if you have your parents and you really learn what they taught you. We were all taught, regardless to where we were from or where we were born, who raised us, we're all taught the right way. But many times we decide, number one, you have to read what you've been expressing all along. We as Black people, we won't pick up a book to read. And that is something that I really didn't understand, because white Americans, whatever they want to call themselves, nationalities, they don't want us to read. And if you don't read, you can't learn. If you don't read, you can't grow. So I thank you for stressing that. I follow Dr. Claude Anderson, of course.
Yes.
And if you really, really want to know your history, go to his seminars, get on his webinar, and he will teach you everything that you should have learned in high school. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. I've missed out a lot of my white friends, billionaires, millionaires. They don't understand. For example, my friend Sherry that we know.
Yes.
She's a little adamant, but anyway, you just keep moving. I don't let that bother me. I just shared with her, you would never understand what it's like to be Black as a Black female. If you don't know how it is to be treated, you won't understand. I don't care how you try to candy coat it, but that is what I tell all of my white friends. I'm just going to say white friends because I have a lot of white friends. I also just wanted to share with you all, I went to school in Arkansas, and I went over, begged my mom and dad to let me go when they were integrating the school. I begged them to go the year before. So I went because I figured like this, if you can make all A's, so can I. So I've always been, if you can do something, my dad and mom raised me, baby, there's nothing that you can't do. So this is what I teach my grandchildren. I have a 29, 21, 16, and a 13. I teach them the word can't. Every time you say the word can't, place it with can. And that's what has kept my entire family. And I'm the baby out of 6. But I just wanted to say thank you for all that you do. thank you so, so very much. And we'll be seeing each other very soon. And happy birthday.
Thank you so much, Barbara. And Barbara and I go back a long ways from California. She's still in California. Like I said, I'm in Texas. And what you said is so true, because I understand that coming from my roots being in Shreveport, Louisiana, where I was born, and having loving parents that cared. And not just our parents. We had the teachers, we had our church. And I have spoken of the churches. The churches are not like it was when I grew up as a child. We had care. Some of these churches out here now have multi-millions of dollars. And as I've spoken in the past, I don't see where they are coming together, the churches, building up in the community, schools, hospitals, churches, building together as a unified Black community. Grocery stores are needed in many of our communities. We don't have them. We don't have decent schools for our children, because we know many of these integrated schools do not care, and they are by design to keep you as enslaved as they can, as an employee, not an employer. And that's what we need. We need employers, so that our Black people can come from behind of where we are now. We have really gone backward in terms of our net worth, as I mentioned. And I talked about that last week. You can go back and look at the show from last week on my YouTube channel. As I said, subscribe, Aim to Purpose Radio. Thumbs up. Because we need more people like this, and more people like you guys coming on shows like this, expressing what we need to hear. And reading really does open the mind to new opportunities. I can't stress that enough. Reading, understanding, acquiring wisdom, acquiring that knowledge, and not just acquiring it, but acting upon it. Because if you acquire the knowledge and you don't act upon it, you're not helping yourself or anybody else. And Barbara mentioned Dr. Claude Anderson. And I mention Dr. Claude Anderson all the time, because this is a man that truly loves his people, us as Black people. And this is the book, Black Labor, White Wealth. I read it back in the 1990s. It was introduced to me by one of my coworkers when I worked for the County of Los Angeles, that I retired from after 32 years of service working there, right out of college at the age of 22. And I retired at the age of 55. And it's interesting how your thoughts really create what you want in life, and you can have it. That was the first show. What do you want? You can have it. Because I started working for the County of Los Angeles at the age of 22, right out of college. Within that 6 months, I went to the orientation, and they gave us information on when you can retire. And I said, well, I'm going to retire on my 55th birthday. And I retired on March 4th, 2006. That's how you create and design your own destiny. Speak it and act upon it. So I spoke it and I acted upon it. So that's what we got to do. We got to speak it and act upon it. You want to say something else, Barbara? Go ahead. Unmute and say what you want to say. But Dr. Claude Anderson is a powerhouse of wealth.
Right. I just want to say one other thing. I got a chance to, back in the 70s, because I graduated in 75, I got a chance to meet a slave. She came, one of my classmates' grandma was a slave. And we had, now the school was integrated, and we had, I think, 5 white students that was out of, Black history. We had 4, I think 5 classes of Black history. Not one white person would enroll except for the 5. And 3 of them I enticed to enroll because they were following me. So I did a lot of, my father always taught me, all of us, to be a leader. Baby, don't be a follower. If you're going to follow someone, you make sure you copy the right cat. So design what you want. If you want a brand new car, you follow someone that doesn't have money like you and ask them how to get their car. He said, because those are the people you follow. So what I did with the slave, we couldn't, the way they talk, sometimes we speak some of their language, like the word fixing to is fitna.
Yes.
So I know some of the language, but we had to get a book. And what I did, I was real savvy. So what I did, I got my teacher, Mr. Rankins, I got the principal, the assistant principal. I'm like, listen, we're not going to know what she's saying when she's talking. So why don't we do a little research, get a lot of those words? And that's what I did. And we made a book. They let us copy it at school. And as she was talking, like 2 minutes when she was talking, I was looking at my white friends from the corner of my eye. They were crying like crazy because they could not believe some of the things that those slaves went through. And I thank God for all the slaves, because honestly, even today, I'm getting ready to have a birthday on the 20th, and I will be a complete senior in the state of California. So I just want to say, I thank God for all the slaves and what they went through. I thank God for everyone that has went through and persevered everything, because without them, where would we be? But that's the best thing that in my life is to have met a slave and to talk to. And also Dr. George C. Frazier, they're going to be doing with Hill Harper, they're going to be doing some things. So make sure everyone get on the website. They're going back to Black Wall Street. They're building up the Greenwood district. So just to give you a little information. But thank you for that. I'll never forget that woman. I will never, ever forget that woman. And I never cried. I didn't drop one tear because I knew how it was. And also today, I just want to say, I would tell my Black history class and the teacher, I said, I could never be a slave. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart, because I would have poisoned everyone, to be beaten, and you have to take a stand. So I
Yes.
just want to say, when you think about slavery, when you think about how we were treated, you think about how we are treated, make a stand. You got to make a stand. And our stand today is reading to learn so we can get ahead. But thank you for allowing me.
I chime in anytime, because what you're saying is so powerful and empowering. And that's what we have to do. We cannot be afraid. And having met a slave that could share with you historical facts and the history, things that she went through, that in itself is powerful. And thank you for sharing that, because I've never met a slave, but I've met enslaved people. But I've never met a true slave. But I meet enslaved quite frequently. And there are so many that still enslaved and entrapped. And some of them are wealthy. You can be wealthy and still enslaved in the mind, because it's all about your mindset. And there are wealthy people out here now that have money, Black people I'm talking about. And they are still entrapped in that enslaved mindset. And they don't care about their community. A lot of them feel, well, I've made it just like I made it, you can make it. And that's not the case. Just because you made it doesn't mean everybody can make it without some push or helping them to understand the root cause of why you're in this situation. But a lot of us who have could care less about the have-nots and where we came from. And we have to be a resilient people to have come from the ancestry that we came from and still relevant, still fighting for freedom, liberation, because we're not free. I think Martin Luther King made some type of statement, I can't recall it, about until all men are free. I can't recall his exact quote, so I'm not going to mess it up, but he made a quote about that. So, and we are not free in this country. Our forefathers worked. We are coming up on 500 years now, and we're still out here fighting for our freedom. They're still making laws. If we were free, why would we have to have these laws that are made? And it goes back to us not demanding anything from the politicians that we vote for, be it black or white. We don't demand anything. And it's still business as usual with them. We put them in office, they come to our churches, our community, talk the game that they always talk, particularly the Democrats, because I don't think the Republicans really could care less about coming to your community. But the Democrats come to our communities, they talk the game, and they go back, get in office, business as usual. Because if it wasn't, we would have our reparations by now. Because it's owed to us, the debt of our forefathers building up, and reparations are given to others, but not us. And I mentioned about the executive order. President Biden and Kamala Harris, whom I did not vote for, they specifically created an executive order for Asians when all of that shooting went on with the Asian community. But no executive order has been made, to my knowledge, by any president, including President Obama, to protect us as Black people specifically. That's what I'm talking about, specifically. But that bill, executive order that Biden-Harris just created, specifically protects Asian people, is an executive order. So we all should be outraged, because that's a slap in the face for Black people that went out and voted for Biden-Harris. And they still have not spoken to anyone Black of substance that has our best interests at heart. Oh, they'll speak to Blacks that out here in entertainment and some of the other fields. And I'm not saying that some of them are not knowledgeable, because they may be. However, why don't you speak to some of the people that, like Dr. Claude Anderson? I don't believe any president has spoken with Dr. Claude Anderson. Dr. Boyce Watkins, who is another pioneer out here, and I've been following him too for several years, who is all about elevating our Black people. He has a Black business school, Dr. Boyce Watkins, where he is sharing information that you're not going to get in the public schools, because they are not going to teach us our history. And something you mentioned, Barbara, I wanted to touch on, because you were talking about going, having the white students, the 5 and so forth. And I don't know about other states, but I know here in Texas, books that were going to teach about Black history, they were banned out of some of the schools, because some of these white parents, oh, their kids' ears are too delicate to hear about slavery. And even Texas tried to pretend that slaves were interns and had it in books. These are things that we need to know about and speak out about. But our ears are not too delicate, or our kids' ears are not too delicate to hear what white people are still doing to us today. This just didn't happen in slavery. It's still happening. Jim Crow, all the Black men, women, and children that are going to juvenile and incarcerated for offenses that white people are just giving a slap on the hand for. Some of them don't even get probation. And many of us are afraid to speak out about it. So we have to teach our children, start educating our children about these atrocities, because they're not going to get it in these white institutions, because it's by design to keep our mind enslaved. And nobody can own your mind. And that's what you have to realize. Nobody can own your brain. They're not inside of you. They can't own your brain. They can fire you from their jobs. Of course, if you speak out, many of them will fire you, because you speak out for justice and righteousness that all human beings were born to have under God's law, not under man's law. And that's what we have to understand. We're under God's law. And I'm not afraid to speak out and speak up about these atrocities that are still going on in employment, housing, education, religious institution, this so-called Christian nation. And if you go into a church right now in America, they are the most segregated places on Sundays, the churches. So why do you think that is? Would anyone like to elaborate on that or give a perspective on it? But we're supposed to be a Christian nation. And God says, worship in spirit and truth. And if you're about truth and you're about worshiping in the spirit, where's your spirituality? Where's your righteousness? And a lot of us just bury our heads in the sand and say, oh, well. And when we are around white people, a lot of us are afraid to speak up. If somebody says something to me, if you're white and I don't believe in it, I'm going to speak up. And I've had that to happen on jobs where I've had white people say, oh, well, you know, it's not any white privilege. And I said, oh, excuse me, I beg to differ with you. I've been living in this black skin for over 60 years, now about to be 71, but this happened when I was in my 60s. And I'm going to be 71 March 4th. And I'm not going to sit there and listen to a white person tell me it's not white privilege in America. And people like Kamala Harris, our vice president, say that racism is no, America's not racist. You can go on YouTube if you don't believe this. America's not racist. And the senator who gave a rebuttal, I think his name is Tim Scott. Let me look it up to make sure. And say, oh, there's no racism in America. America's not a racist country. So would anyone else like to say something? If so, please do. Go ahead and speak while I look this up, please. Don't be afraid. Don't be fearful. Speak up.
Because can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Angie. I'm glad you're here.
Oh, finally, I got
you got in. Go ahead and speak.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to say that I don't have a lot of knowledge about what Kamala Harris has been saying, and that's one of the reasons why I think that this program is very good for us, because it helps us to understand better what's going on around us. Now, I was 100% for Kamala Harris. I mean, I just thought that she had a better understanding of what's happening in our country. It sounds like she might be, you know, saying some things that, I don't know, puts her in a better light, you know, with her politically wise, you know. But this is a great program. I'm so very glad you're doing it. The information that you gave me about the first Black millionaire, for instance,
in Texas.
I had never heard that. Huh?
In Texas.
What was that?
The first Black millionaire in Texas.
In Texas. So I had not known about him either. And so this program, I just wanted to say, not that I have much to offer, but I want to say that I receive a lot by listening in on this. And I think it's a great program. It's educational, and I appreciate that. I really do. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. That's what we have to do because we are perishing as Black people for lack of knowledge. And I had his name right. America is not a racist country. Thank you for that, Angie. Senator Tim Scott delivers a GOP response. He said it. Kamala Harris came behind him and spoke it as well. And if America is not a racist country, why are we as Black people going through all of these challenges that we are facing economically, intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, mentally? And I'm going to have a mental health profession on my show in April, most likely, because we need to know about these people and we keep voting for them. Kamala Harris on her campaign trail stated, and it's on YouTube as well if you want to go and look it up. Oh no, I'm not going to do anything specifically for Black people. But when it came to Asian people, that bill was signed, an executive order was signed specifically to protect Asian people. And this is not to hate on anybody, because we should be about love as a country. However, it's about equality as well. Equal rights for everyone. Nobody has signed an executive order, to my knowledge, to help overcome the killings of Black people in this country. And that's why I talk a lot about Black on Black crime too, because we need to stop killing one another, because that's exactly what they want you to do. Kill one another. So that's less they'll have to kill of us. And no, I did not vote for Biden Harris because I knew the history of it. I knew the history of both of them. When Joe Biden was a senator, how he helped to put many Black people in the prison system. So I'm not going to go out and give my vote to somebody that doesn't give anything in return to Black people. And that's what we have to learn to stop doing. We give our votes to these people, and if that be the case, why are we still living the way we live? If you go through any Black community USA, you're going to see a difference there in what you see in any white community. And I know it because I've been fighting for it when I lived in California. When I lived in West Long Beach, California, I wrote to my mayor. I wrote to my city council person. And I told them, you need to come and clean up these alleys over here. When you drive in East Long Beach to the white community, you don't see all this. We pay our taxes just like they do. And believe me, they started cleaning up the west side of Long Beach, California. We let them get away with this stuff and we keep voting for them. And we need to stop, because they're not going to do anything for us as long as we sit back complacent and not say anything or not do anything. So no, I did not vote for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. So we just gotta stop and think about what we're getting in return for our votes. And I'm not telling anybody not to vote. It's up to you how you want to live your life. I'm just saying we need to think of the consequences of how we live our life. And that's why I will be on here putting messages and news out to our people so we can gain knowledge to govern ourselves so that we can elevate ourselves, because we're brilliant people. And I look at this jewelry I have on, some of the jewelry I wear, like what I had on last week. My cousin made it. This jewelry I have on. In fact, Andre, you're on here. I believe somebody you knew made this jewelry that I have on today. Is that correct? Because I believe I bought it from you through somebody that you knew. So that's a business in itself.
It very well could be, Louise. First of all, good morning. No, well, it's California, so good afternoon. It's so good to see you. But I don't remember exactly. I think of a girlfriend at work at one of the county buildings made it. But as you said before, it's so much, and we don't have that much time, but it's so much that you said earlier that I could touch bases on. But going back to our children and getting away from a little bit of a Kamala Harris and Biden. My granddaughter, she makes that jewelry now. And believe it or not, she's 6 years old. And she's making the jewelry. That's Taryn. She's making jewelry. And we actually put them on. We actually send a text message and people are actually buying them. So she's already starting to be a little entrepreneur, and she's 6. But you start with our children early. We don't want to wait till they're 10, 11, 12, because they pretty much have their own mindset by that time. We catch them early and find what they're interested in, find their little glitches, and help it to manifest. You know, that gives them a boost in life. That was what I wanted to interject. And now I want to get back to Kamala Harris. At that time, with the Trump administration and the Biden, we really didn't have that much to choose from, because Trump was willing to tap into the middleman's retirement fund. So we didn't have much. We didn't have a good. Those two candidates is what I'm trying to say. They weren't for Black people either way it go. We didn't stand a chance, in my opinion. But you had to choose the best candidate for the position. You want your retirement tapped into, or you take a chance with the Democrats. That was it. Thank you for hearing me out. Okay?
And I appreciate your comment, Andre, that your perspective. I really appreciate it. And that's how a lot of Black people, from what I understand, felt. That's why Dr. Claude Anderson, that was mentioned earlier by Barbara, has advocated for years that we need to start our own Black party. And did you guys know that there was a Black Freedom Democratic Party back when Fannie Lou Hamer was fighting for our rights? They created a Black Freedom Party that was effective back then. Did anybody watch the documentary on Fannie Lou Hamer that was on PBS? And I believe it's still airing now on Prime Video. Did anyone see that by any chance?
No, I did not.
Because if you didn't, please, by all means, watch it. We had a Black Freedom Democratic Party. And Fannie Lou Hamer, that it brought tears to my eyes, and it brought anger to me to see how that lady suffered. And that was the other thing I wanted to talk about, since we're talking about today's topic, Black warriors for justice, because we care. And the care is for creating a relevant environment. Fannie Lou Hamer, I remember her, I was probably maybe 25 or 26 back then when she was fighting for our rights. So look her up. She was, in fact, she died in March of, I believe, 1977, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look her up. And we need our own party. We definitely do, because we're not going to get anything from any of these people. They've shown us who they are. As Maya Angelou say, when they show you who they are, believe them. Because they're not going to do anything for us. And it's already been put out there. Okay, Fannie Lou Hamer was born October 6, 1917. She died March 14, 1977. And she was an American voting and women's rights activist, community organizer, and a leader in the civil rights movement. She was the co-founder and vice chair of the Freedom Democratic Party, which was represented at the 1964 Democratic National Convention. And you know what? White racists hated her guts. But you know what? She didn't care, because she was a righteous person that knew that she was born for what she was doing. And that's what we got to realize and pass it on, teach our children. Like what Andre said, I'm so proud of your granddaughter. 6 years old, making jewelry, selling it, an entrepreneur. And that's what we got to do. We got to start from infancy. In fact, that's biblical. And I've shared with you guys before and told you, white racist, supremacists, white privileged people use the Bible to enslave us. We need to use the Bible to change our mindset, empower us as a people. There are so many scriptures in there that tells you about renewing of your mind. You should not be fearful. God did not give us the spirit of fear, but of power. That's a scripture. And I believe it's in Timothy, 2 Timothy, maybe 1:7. And I'm going to continue to do what I do as long as God has given me this purpose. God gave me aim to purpose, which is about aspiration, inspiration, motivation, edification, and determination. If you have those attributes, you are empowered to do whatever it is that you desire to do. Get the desires of your heart. And that's what we should be getting, the desires of our heart. Stop giving our money to these people that don't give a damn about us. Patronize your own people first, even if you have to pay a little bit more, because that's what some, oh, it was too much. Well, they can't afford to get their prices equal with Amazon. But if they have the same product, you know what, that I need, I'm going to buy it from Black movement first. And that's not to hate on anybody. Charity starts at home. And if somebody cannot understand that, that's on them, not me. Because I've taught my children, and I'm still teaching them about our history. I used to buy history books that had first in it that Black people did. We've contributed so much to this country, and a lot of us don't even know it. And some of us never heard of Fannie Lou Hamer. John Henry Clark, another person that some of us never heard of. And this man is more in the 20th century, like Fannie Lou Hamer. And let me tell you something about him. Okay, John Henry Clark was a Pan-Africanist writer, historian, professor, and a pioneer in the creation of Africana studies and professional institutions in academia starting in the late 1960s. And some of us don't even know who he is. He was born in 1915, died in 1998, 20th century. And I'm going to share with you some of Dr. John Henry Clark quotes. Hold on, and I'm going to share it with you. Well, let me share this one with you first, from one of my favorite people, Malcolm X. Malcolm X said, "Fools try to ignore facts, but wise men must face facts to remain wise. Fools refuse to change from their silly ways and beliefs, but the mental flexibility of the wise man permits him to keep an open mind and enables him to readjust himself whenever it becomes necessary for a change." This is powerful too, because many of us are not willing to adjust ourselves for change because of the enslaved, entrapped mindset. And that's so sad, because the purpose of, by design, white supremacy, white races is to control, conquer, have power over us, and kill us. And this, I already knew this because I've always been a very inquisitive person, but this came from a white person too, that shared this with me. And he said, well, it didn't come from me, but this is what it's all about. And there are many white people out here who did help the cause. Some of them died for our cause, and some of us are not willing to die for our cause. We're not even willing to stand up and speak for our cause, some of us, because I'm scared. I'm scared what white people might think and what they might say. And I remember on my job when I was, because I've held many management leadership positions within the county of Los Angeles. And I recall this white gentleman had come to do an audit with us. And I had to, of course, being a department head, had to go and work with him. And somehow the subject of racism came up. And he said, well, you know, we didn't do anything. That was our ancestors. And I said, excuse me? Those were your ancestors, but you guys, some of you are still doing the same thing. You're still practicing racism on us. So I had to educate him and let him know. Well, I'm sure he already know, because a lot of white people will pretend they don't know or they don't understand. They understand. Many of them understand. Now, some of them may not, and some of them are teaching their children hate. I had a little white kid when I was a teacher's aide tell me that her mother told her that we were niggers. And I said, well, you tell your mother that I'm not a nigger. And it's interesting because we had a PTA and I had to assist the teacher at the PTA meeting, and her mother came to the PTA meeting and she saw me. You should have seen her. I don't think she was expecting to see me there. I was a teacher's aide. And she turned beet red and looked like she could have slithered under that concrete floor, because her daughter must have told her what I said. But this stuff is taught. Children are not born hating other people. And this colorblind theory, how can you be colorblind? Don't you see the color of people when you look at them? Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate you being here. Anyone else want to speak? Because we're getting close. We're getting ready to wrap it up. And I just want to give you a quote from John Henry Clark. So anyone want to speak, you can unmute, and I'm going to give you a quote from John Henry Clark, who I just read to you about. And one thing, I'm going to give you two. One thing he said was on teaching, because I'm going to have an educator next month when we start March Madness, as they call it. He says on teaching, this is John Henry Clark, I only debate my equals, all others I teach. And that's a great saying, because we need to teach. You can debate somebody that's equal, and you educate those that are not. So that's a powerful little quick quote from John Henry Clark. And I'll give you one on powerful from John Henry Clark, being powerful. He said, powerful people cannot afford to educate the people that they oppress, because once you are truly educated, you will not ask for power, you will take it. And that's a true statement. You take your power. And with that said, does anyone want to say anything? If not, we're going to close the show out today. And I thank you all for coming in, listening, participating in the topic of today, which was Black Warriors for Justice because we care. And the CARE stands for creating a relevant environment. And we ended with that statement of being powerful, because powerful people speak up, speak out, and you're not fearful. You have that, you do not have that spirit of fear, because you've been given power to speak. And that's why he says, again, I will read, and I'm going to close the show with my statement on power. Dr. John Henry Clark said, powerful people cannot afford to educate the people that they oppress. And that's very powerful, because they don't want you to be educated, because they're oppressing us. And he says, because once you are truly educated, you will not ask for power, you will take it. And that's what we're doing. We're taking our power. And I'm going to leave the show with this. Your power lies within you. Let it loose. And thank you all for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I will see you next Sunday. And remember to subscribe to my channel, Aim to Purpose Radio. Share this video with your friends, your family, and help to empower them to know that they don't have to be fearful, because God gave them the power. You were born with the power, melanated power. So you don't have to be fearful to speak up. Educate yourself. And have a wonderful day, and see you all next Sunday. Again, Aim to Purpose Radio is my YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and thumbs up. Until next week.